I've got a couple different things that we can talk about today. It'll be a little bit more loose, but I'm encouraging people on the YouTube channel to ask questions and then we can answer those questions. One, because that creates free content for us, which is easy. And then two, I like the way some people ask their questions. So it's helpful to be able to answer it towards how it is that they asked it. And then after that, I've got some, I want to talk about like the past meet a little bit. And then also kind of a little bit about the squat, bench, and deadlift and the specifics of those with how you approach them. Sound good?
Sure.
All right, cool. So I'll start with some of the YouTube questions and then we'll go from there. All right, so the first question is, if you ever have any pain or if you ever get to the point where you're injured, how do you deal with those?
Well, at this point, I've been competing and training and lifting for so long now. It's bound to happen at some point. I mean, for most people, at some point, maybe there's not going to be a catastrophic injury, but you're going to have maybe something feels a little pulled or something hurts or something doesn't feel right for a few days or a few weeks. And that is pretty normative, I think, for people who've been competing as long as I have at the level that I compete at. So the first thing I would harp on is to not overreact and don't panic. In my opinion, people who overreact, who panic, who try to overcorrect too harsh, too quickly, and do too much, just end up making it worse a lot of the time.
So when you say like overcorrect, what are you referring to as far as like what kind of behaviors would people be doing or actions?
I think some people, they think that if they continue to do anything, they become hurt, so they become near completely sedentary, which is not the best thing to do, like 99% of the time in those situations. Which leads me to my second point, to answer this question, is to continue to be active, but do so within your means. A little bit of discomfort is, again, going to probably still be normative, but you shouldn't be in blistering pain 24/7. So balancing that, with your coach or, a PT or whoever should be helpful as well. Something else I would consider are alternate sort of movements that don't cause or inflict as much pain, but still allow you to increase your work capacity and still allow you to hit volume and still allow you to get stronger. So those are just sort of all things to consider when you're approaching that kind of problem. And I think, if you can, you should continue to do some form of, activity or exercise, like even if it's just walking each day, do something rather than nothing. A little something's always better than nothing, like most of the time.
All right, cool. Next one. So how do you distribute intensity? Are there days where you do not exceed, let's say, an RPE 6?
Yes. If I, even with RP 6s and 5s, on some of those days, I have to undershoot and be careful because the objective loads, of the weight that I lift at those RPEs is still really high. So for instance, a true RPE 6, let's say you're thinking RIR, so reps in reserve. So you do a 6, that means you have 4 reps left in the tank, on a scale of 1 to 10, how the RP system works. So theoretically, whatever weight I'm doing for an RPE 6, I should be able to complete for 5 good reps, right? Let's say I'm prescribed a squat RPE 5, and RPE 5 is usually the lowest you'll see like on my program. I can squat over 700 pounds for 5 reps. So doing an RPE 5, single is still over 700 pounds. And relative, to me, it's an RPE 5, but at the same point in time, the objective load and the objective stress that causes is still a lot. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes on those days, I'll significantly undershoot and I'll go down like, another 50, 60 pounds, So instead of like 722 for RP5, maybe I'll do like 661 or, 650. And my body will feel a lot better doing that.
So it sounds like when you're talking about like the RPE 6, you're referring to when you hit a single. Is that mainly where you encounter your RPEs, or how often do you use them when you're doing like sets with more reps? And then Also, is there a difference between whether it's the big three or your accessory movements?
I use them in rep ranges and accessory movements too, but I also use percentages like for things like back downs. I don't use RPE for back downs usually.
I see. So with your programming, so like a lot of times when you have an RPE 6 or less, will that tend to be like when you're doing a single, or are there times where you do like working sets with accessory movements or something where you have RPE 6?
Oh, sorry, I thought I had said this. No, no. So for the work, the movements, the other movements, the accessory movements, and for more reps on the main three, I also still use the RP system. So for instance, a whole block I might be doing triples on squat, bench, and deadlift. I still use the RP system
Mhm.
generally.
Like how often do you normally train before you take a deload?
Mm, yeah, so I wouldn't always necessarily call it a deload in the traditional sense that people may think of it as. I would say usually every 4 weeks, and every 4 weeks, like that consists usually of a mini training cycle, and usually 6 of those comprises of a bigger one. But also, given my schedule of meets and how many meets I do, it kind of it's not always. I don't say it would neatly fit into that, but usually on one of the weeks of the 4 weeks, we're usually dialing back intensity pretty significantly, and
Mhm.
that almost acts as a deload.
I see. I see. So you typically run like 3 hard training weeks and then a lighter week.
Yeah, and even hard, I would say, you know, rate of if we're talking, rate of perceived exertion, I'm not going to go above an 8 for more than usually 2 weeks in most blocks.
Mhm.
Ever. Usually, it's just 1 week.
I see. So something like an RP 5 or 6, would that mainly be seen in a light week, or will you sometimes have that inside of a harder training week?
That's usually like an RP5 would be usually a lighter week. A 6 could be kind of a lighter week, but you're still lifting some heavier weight because, like I said
Hmm.
earlier, 6 for me is still objectively a lot of weight. And then 7 and then 8.5 or something like that. But it really depends. Like if I'm preparing for a meet or if I'm doing more reps and it's a little bit safer to push higher RPEs, things like that.
Hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right,
Because
for
if
the
I'm doing
next
like
one.
an RPE 9 for a set of 5, on the big three, it's a little bit safer for me to push that weight harder. The objective load won't be as heavy, but I'm doing because I'm doing more reps.
Yeah,
Rather than pushing an RPE 9 plus with like singles where I'll be squatting like 820, 830. I don't like to do that too often yet, not until I'm stronger.
yeah. When you say none to your stronger, do you mean like as you're peaking for a meet, or
Well, I
just
just mean overall, like when my baseline gets stronger, I'm more comfortable hitting certain numbers more often.
I
Like
see,
right now,
I see.
like like if I wanted to, I could squat over 700 every week pretty comfortably, probably
Hmm.
at this point. Um, and a year ago, 2 years ago, I wasn't able to do that, but just kind of increasing the baseline over time.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense because your 90% 2 years ago is it's definitely a lot lower than your 90% today.
Yeah, it is different.
Cool. All right, so the next one. How does the physical military activity affect your lifting, and how do you compensate for that?
I mean, it really depends. Like, when I was in ROTC in undergrad, I would do a lot of running. I would do a lot of rucking. I would do all that stuff, and then I would do like 26-mile like marathon rucks like 3 weeks before collegiate nationals. Um, and really, just sort of boils down to giving each of those things an adequate amount of attention, um, and being able to sort of just manage your mental energy and your physical energy, into each task appropriately. Like if you need to perform well on a PT test, because those are required, then you need to focus on performing well on that test. And it doesn't mean you stop lifting or stop training. It just means that maybe you don't lift as intense or you do as much, accessory work, or you don't go as hard as, on the volume, and you kind of just hit the meat and potatoes of what really matters. And that's what I did, and that would work significantly. And if I'm preparing for a meet or a big competition, generally I would pull back and not, PT as hard outside of my lifting. Still PT, still do something, still maintain fitness, but it doesn't have to be as extreme or as hard, in the weeks leading up to like a PT test or a big, ruck or something like that.
Mhm. Would
So just
you go
that's all
ahead?
it is. Oh, it's just balance. That's all it really is.
Would you so let's say you had a marathon ruck like on a weekend. Would you alter the rest days around those time around that, or change your sessions throughout the week as far as like how many you have?
Well, it depends honestly on my schedule. If I can't really change, a lot of times I wouldn't really be able to change the days that I'm lifting. And I was a member of UTSA powerlifting, and I was like the president of the team one year. So like I didn't really change the days I train. I would still come in and still try to lead and be there. So no, I would still show up.
Mhm. But just a little bit lighter to
Um,
counteract the heavy stimulus coming from like the ruck or something.
Maybe, or I would still lift really heavy, but I would just do a lot less like back downs and volume and stuff.
I see. I
Work
see.
up to top stuff and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah, that does seem to kind of be like the like with a strength sport paired with something else, especially some sort of cardiovascular conditioning. You keep the heaviest sets and the highest intensity, and you pull away from, like you said, the back downs as well as the accessories. So it's kind of like you keep the most important thing, and then you start to shed some of the semi important stuff, and then you make sure there's just no junk volume in there at all.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, that's really what matters, right? Is like the weight that we're lifting. When we compete, we're measured by objectively, our placing is measured by the amount of weight we've lifted and doing what's most conducive and most important to allow yourself to lift the most weight possible is sort of the way I see it. Like for me, back down eights at, whatever, like that's cool and it helps you and it's gonna help you lift, potentially help you lift the most that you possibly can, but it's not. I think for most people, it's not absolutely essential. I think it is more essential for some than others to get in that extra workload, that volume. But I've seen, in my experience and some others I know, really you just need sort of that heaviest stuff and exposure to that weight.
So let's take away the thought of like cardiovascular conditioning and like PT rucking, all of that stuff for a second, and let's just look at like the main essentials of those heavy sets, and then all of the back down and accessory work. So let's say one person just did the the essential stuff, and then another person, or like the same person, different scenario, um, also added in all of the back down and accessory work. How would you think their progress would be different as far as how much faster they get strong?
If if I'm understanding this correctly, if one person sort of just did like the heaviest set and then no significant back downs, or the other person is just sort of doing volume.
So when we talked about sort of like the essential stuff, the heavier sets, just what you're working up to with the big three.
One
Um,
person's doing that.
yes, and the other person is also doing that, but they also have the back down sets and the accessory work. Like, how much
Mhm.
different do you think their progress would be?
I think like for the average person or the average like competitive powerlifter, I think that person B with everything is has a better chance of progressing more. I do think that in some situations though, some people will progress better, as person A though. Like for instance, for me, I think that like that back down volume stuff is helpful, it helps people. I mean, what we look at it like what is it intended to do, there's the idea of like conditioning work capacity and then like building muscle, right? And building muscle mass, getting more practice with the movement. Getting more practice with the movement is probably one of the bigger things for powerlifting as well as building muscle mass. But for me, I already have a lot of muscle mass. So I'm not saying that I don't need to build muscle mass, but it's not as much of a dire need for me as it is probably for the average competitive powerlifter, that needs to build that muscle mass. Like for me, it's more so movement practice and just lifting the most weight possible with what I have now. And at times I'll recomp, like my body weight and stay at the same body weight. I mean, and try to become more muscular. But other than those times, like right now, I'm doing that. So I'm doing more volume and stuff like that, so I can become more muscular more than I am now. It's probably why I look a little different than the last few videos. uh, but generally, I'm more so focused on strength, and those sort of meat and potatoes for me are the bigger things. Especially like when it just it fits better into my hectic work style, work life and style. But generally speaking, I think person B would progress better. But there are instances, and there are certain individuals I think where person A would progress, where some people would fit better in that person A sort of category. Um, I think even sometimes, some amount of volume, if it's not like, if the intensity is not scaled enough, it can actually be harmful to some people to be the person B, you know, like if the volume is too much weight or too heavy, especially relative to the weight they're lifting or their max, like they may not be able to perform as well, or they might just get busted up.
Mhm. Yeah, that's certainly been me before. Was trying to do everything all at once, and after a couple weeks, I was like, "Why do I even lift weights? I hate it." And then I have to go
Like,
take a short deload or a deload fast because that would be the only way to get back on track.
yeah, like for me, if I was, let's say I squat, 750 for a top set of three, and then let's say my back downs are, like 694 for like sets of five. That's a lot. you know, like like that's like a killer, like kind of like, workout. Like let's say you had three back down sets of five, and the weight prescribed is like 694,
Mhm.
and we don't do that. Like Marcellus and I, we never do that. But I'm just saying, like that for me would be more dangerous than just hitting that top set of 750 for three, moving on to the next lifts, and then doing accessories later, which don't put as much stress, on your body overall.
Yeah, and it does seem like too the higher weights you can get to overall, the less overall time you spend with those heavy weights, just because of the fatigue and also injury potential that they accumulate. Like when you were back, you know, squatting 400, back count sets at 350 were no problem, and it wouldn't beat you up as bad. Whereas now, I assume it would be kind of like doing heavy damage and heavy fatigue if you stay up and just do set after set in the 700s or close
Yeah,
to it.
that would be absolutely brutal. I mean,
Yeah,
I could do it and it can be done, but my question is, will I recover from it, like to sustain it, and will I get stronger? At the end of the day, you know, my friend always says this: it's not about what you can do; it's about what you can recover from. So
yeah, that is true. And that's also the difference too between like like I'm trying to remember the exact terms, but like the maximum adaptable volume versus like the maximum recoverable volume. And it's like
yeah,
what's optimal for you is not at the point where it's like the most you can possibly do and still recover from.
yeah,
Like you've already surpassed the point of maximum adaptation at that point. Because now you're accumulating too much muscle damage and you gotta get rid of all that before you can get your strength or hypertrophic adaptations after that.
yeah. My friend Sean Noriega actually talks a lot about this in a video he did a while back. He breaks it down really well. So if anybody
We might
wants to,
try and we might try and link that up top at this point in the video so people can click on it if they like it. All
yeah, that's a
right.
good.
So all right, I got this next question. You'll like this one. So do you train when you're sick? And and if so, like how does it vary based on whether it's a cold or the flu or any other like severe illness?
I generally do train when I'm sick. I just try to not be around people so I don't get them sick. And of course, I like clean
Yeah.
equipment and stuff. I try to do it as responsibly as possible. I mean, if I'm like really, really sick and I can't like move or something, which doesn't really happen often, I don't get sick often. But
Hmm.
if it were like that, then no, I would stay home for a couple of days and just wait. You know, not risk, s- spreading symptoms or killing myself or spreading myself too thin. Like if I can barely get out of bed, then why am I going to put weight on my back? Or like that, it just might do more damage than good
Yeah.
at that point. But if I'm not feeling too well or I'm a little under the weather, maybe I'll train later or really early, where there's less people, clean equipment down, stuff like that, and not push to, these sort of crazier thresholds. Like still get movement in, still do stuff, but not, too intense or too extreme.
Hmm. Seems pretty reasonable.
Yeah. Because I think, like if you have like a common cold or you're a little bit under the weather, like it doesn't mean you need to completely stop everything you're doing. But, just try to be, one, try to be courteous to others and not get them sick. And then two, um, you know, don't kill yourself in the process either. Still train, still show up, still lift, still move some weight, but don't overextend. Like if you have an RP9 for that day, maybe consider rescheduling that or waiting a couple of days to do that, and then doing something a much lighter exertion, in between. Just things to consider.
Mhm. All right, cool. All right, so here was his from the person I'm reading from their questions. Here's their last one, and they prefaced it by saying it's more of a critical one. So here it goes. You want to establish yourself as a world-class athlete, as the best in the world, but you choose to stay within the US by not staying within the IPF. How legitimate can that be?
Mm, that's an interesting question, and you know, if the USAPL weren't as competitive as it is, I would be compelled or inclined to agree, but that's just simply not the case for a lot of weight classes. If you look at like 74s, for instance, a lot of them wouldn't even place outside of Taylor Atwood. A lot of them wouldn't place top 5 in the US. Same thing in the 83s. Outside of, Delaney Wallace and Tim, a lot of them wouldn't even place in the US. They wouldn't be strong enough. They're literally not physically strong enough. If you look at the 105 weight class, the winning total is lower than mine, and it's lower than Bob's. Bob did 220 at USAPL Nationals. And then if you look at the 264 weight class, I think my friend who I went to UTSA with, and he trained with me for a while, a few years actually in San Antonio, so he's a good friend of mine. His name is Kevin Wynn. He won the 275 weight class open at 22 years old at USAPL Nats with a 2094 total, which is pretty big. That's like a 950 kilo total. It's like probably top 3 totals in the USAPL right now, behind me and then behind when Jesus, I think, competed in the USAPL. But he probably would have won 264 at Worlds, And to me, it's just like the US has the better competition and the better lifters at the moment. And me, I usually like to compete where the stronger people and the stronger lifters are. And in most weight classes, not all, but most, the USAPL has the stronger the stronger lifters.
Mm-hmm. And then it's kind of interesting because I would have I'll give you what my answer would have been if I were the one that was being asked, and then I'll see how you respond to it, because it seems like we've got a little bit different approach when it comes to powerlifting meets. I think it's fun to train or to go compete with the stronger people, but to me it doesn't seem as necessary. And the reason for that is because at the end of the day, you can video your lifts, and obviously all of them have to be, of course, like good equipment, reasonable equipment, and then if you can hit the standards for every single lift, you squat low enough, you bench press, you pause long enough, you lock it out, deadlift, you lock it out, no hitching, etc. To me, it doesn't matter where you do it. As long as they're calibrated plates and that's the weight it was and it was done respectably, then if you did it, you did it. And if you're the best because you've got the highest total, then you're the best. And it doesn't matter if you did it at a garage meet or if you did it at the biggest meet in the world. And but it seems like on your side, you tend to care a little bit more about actually showing up next to those competitors on that day and beating them on that day. So where do you kind of sit with that?
I feel like I'll explain it this way so it's really clear. I feel like if I intentionally go away from the people who are stronger, who will push me more, I would feel like a coward. So I don't do it.
Yeah,
And
I like that.
for me too, it's also practical. I mean, at the level I'm at, like I still want to improve and like get stronger. If I compete with people who, if I don't improve, they will beat me, it forces me to get better. So it's really it's a great system. Like if I compete, there are people who can compete at world championships and they can win title after title and they can go uncontested for years. And for me, there's nothing appealing about that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if I'm not improving or getting stronger, like it, for me, it's just not, it just gets boring. Or to me, that concept seems boring,
Mm-hmm.
Versus going and competing with, people who are truly the best. And not to say that there's not a lot of, excellent and talented IPF lifters. There really are. Even in my weight classes, like there's some very, very talented lifters around the world. Emil Norling from Sweden, Anatoly from Ukraine. Um, there's a few new folks. There's a few folks in the UK. There's of course Michael Davis in the US. There are hard hitters out there. There's very talented people, but a lot of them just aren't quite at the level that I would want, for that competitive edge, like a Bob Matthews is, who won the 220 weight class. Um, so there's there's give and take. I also think regarding the comment made about whatever meat you do it in, I mostly agree with that. Well, I somewhat agree with it. I do think it depends on some meats, like backyard meats. Like, I hate to say it, but some of them like have very lax judging, or you did harp on this, like you're assuming they're using good equipment and stuff.
Yeah,
So
that's
as
why
long
I tried to add that part in.
yeah, as long as the equipment is good, but as long as the judging is also like good and consistent. Because I've seen a lot of those meets where high squats are passed, and these are high squats that add, 30, 40, 50, 60 pounds to your total, and inflate your total and make it look bigger than it actually should have been. And then they go to another federation and then they total like 100 pounds less. And it's like, what happened? But, if they weren't lifting to standard, then it's just a completely different matter altogether.
Yeah,
So,
and I agree with that. And I never understood why people would take their high squat. It doesn't matter if you get 3 white lights. If you look at the video and it was high,
it's
you
bad.
shouldn't
Like,
accept it. Yeah, it's like don't go with that.
just be, to those people, I say just be humble and just try to be better.
Yeah.
You don't have to like squat 3 inches below parallel. You don't have to do all this stuff. The hip joint needs to go below the top of the knee joint. That's like the rule, right? That's all I want to see. It doesn't have to be 3 inches, 5 inches, just below it, and I'm okay with it. I can live with it. But yeah, because I mean, I've seen some people put up mega meets, like one-off, like anomaly meets. I know Jesse Norris was one of them. I know, what's his name? I think Ben Pollack did like the record breakers thing or whatever. And it's nothing against those guys, again, because they're very strong and they're great competitors. But those meets like did not have, like, some of those meets they did not have like great judging or great equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's just like, it's like, that's cool, you put up this big total, but is it really that? Because every other one, it's not that. So, I'm not really,
Yeah.
I'm not personally impressed.
It seems like too a lot of the motivation behind going to the bigger meets is the thrill of it, of being able to go that day and not knowing if you're going to get first place or not, and you got to bring your best for the chance to get it. And I assume that would bring a lot more meaning to the powerlifting meet as well.
Yeah, I mean, all my favorite meets are the ones I've won on body weight.
Cool.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about those things.
Yeah, I like your answers. Probably more than my answers, to be honest. All right, let's see. All right, so that's all the questions we had from that end. Now let's roll into the squat, bench, and dead. Actually, before we do that, let's talk about your last meet.
I think that's sort of the big topic we should talk about today as well.
Okay. Have you had any kind of interview or public forum to sort of like talk it out and articulate it?
No, not really. I haven't really talked.
Okay, cool.
Yep, because I think there's probably details and things in there that people don't know. So, the first thing, this meet was in Las Vegas, Nevada, right? So I've never been to Las Vegas. I've always wanted to go. I've always wanted to, have a good time there and all that stuff. I just, at least once. Like, I don't have to go. Now that I've been there, I can comfortably say I don't need to go there often. It's not a place I need to go often. But it was a great time, and I made a lot of good memories there. So the problem with nationals this year is that 220, 242, 275, 308, 308 plus, all were competing on the same day this year on Sunday, right? The last day of the event. And the issue with that is, one, half the people freaking leave by Sunday. A lot of the people that I was seeing and talking to, like on, I think like Wednesday or whatever, they were all gone by Sunday, So that's one issue.
How many days was the event?
I think it was like Tuesday to Sunday.
Okay.
It's a big event. It's a big event because there's a lot of people.
Yeah, that's 5 days is a lot of people.
Yeah. It's always USAPL Nats is always a big event. I don't like competing Sunday. The way that they scheduled the last like the last 3 days or so ish, 2 or 3 days, I didn't really like it. I think they could have done it differently. And 100 and 110 at least wouldn't have had to lift on Sunday because I think that was just ridiculous. You know, those were like prime weight classes to watch. I don't know why. Um, I don't know why they were on Sunday. Anyway, um, I had to lift Sunday. That was the reality and the fact of the matter. And for me, being in Las Vegas for the first time ever and then leaving knowing I had to leave Monday, I did not want to wait until Sunday to do anything fun. Like I think that wasn't fair to me. I've had a really sort of arduous and, difficult year, leading into this meet, not just in training, but in everything. And, the work that I do and stuff like that. I just wanted to take a couple of days, somewhat to myself. I mean, I was still answering emails and doing some work, but I just wanted to at least have a good time in Vegas, right? So by doing that, I got hammered every single day going into the meet. Yeah, I did.
What day did you
I
come in?
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, every
Okay.
single day. We went out, we did all kinds of crazy stuff. I got hammered every day. Saturday I was like, I'm not having any drinks. And then I was like 2 drink max. And then, my friends were like, oh, well, already 2.5 friends just competed. They need drinks. And so I like bought a whole bunch of drinks and had all that with them. And then it was not a 2 drink minimum.
Now to
And I,
clarify, you're a big man. I assume you don't drink often, but you are a big man. So
I
so
have an
for you to get
incredibly high
hammered, what does
tolerance.
that look like? We talking like
Um,
pitchers?
yeah, it was quite a bit. Um, nothing, nothing. There were like no, dangerous circumstances or situations or anything like that. But just due to the fact that I have, a lot of muscle mass and incredibly, I can probably metabolize up alcohol better than a lot of people. I just have a way higher tolerance, so it takes a lot. And with that considered, when I actually competed on Sunday, I weighed in at like 222, 223. I was like, I can't be right. I'm usually like 230, you know. But I figure Vegas is like 105 to 110 degrees every day plus, you know. Um, the drinking, the going out, the stuff like that, responsibly, of course, but still, all of that together over a period of 4 days, you're going to go in massively dehydrated. So that's kind of what happened. And at that point, when I started lifting, it was not about hitting the numbers that I wanted anymore. It was just about survival mode and winning the meet. That's why I put up a total that was like not impressive at all. Like I think it was probably one of my weakest totals in a long time. But it was just I put up something just to win. I didn't push, really lifts to like total maxes. It wasn't like, this glorious meet that I was originally intending to do, which I can live with because I had a great time in Vegas again. And, got to see some of the things I wanted to see and do some of the things I wanted to do. So I'm not upset about it, but it comes with the territory. It's a consequence of your actions.
Mm.
So I didn't, obviously look nearly as much as I wanted to. It was just about survival mode and winning. So when I was in squat, I missed my second attempt squat. Like I just missed it, which was bizarre because that's the first time I missed a squat, I think in 4 years, maybe more. Like I don't think I've ever missed one on strength in a meet. Maybe I have. Maybe it was years ago. I think I did years ago, like 7 years ago. But I don't really miss squats like in meets, you know. And it was a weight that I've hit many, many, many times, like in training and meets, like every meet the last year or two, I've hit this weight. So I'm like,
What
this
was
doesn't.
your first and second attempt?
It's the same as other ones. Like I go 716, 782, and then I go to like 8, whatever on my third.
Mhm.
So it was normal, you know. But on 782, like for some reason, like one, when I went to go squat on it, when I was looking at the barbell, it was like warped badly.
Yeah,
And a
yeah,
lot
the
of people,
rainbow.
yeah. And a lot of people, in the back, we were talking about it, and it was like squatting on like a Texas power bar or something. It was really bad. And if anyone squatted over 700 on a Texas power bar, then you know what I'm talking about, you know. And it wasn't great. And then, that made things a lot more sort of unstable and difficult. Plus, probably being dehydrated from the last few days, all of that just sort of came together to make squats a total shit show. So, I literally just missed my second, like which I have not, like I said, have not missed a squat in years in a meet. Had to be in Vegas, right? So they asked me if I want to go up for my third and just kind of, regroup and everything. And I'm like, no, just leave 782 on. I don't want to I don't want to risk missing a third, and this weight, for some reason, 782 has never been that hard to stabilize ever. But since it was that hard to stabilize that day, I mean, even when I competed sub 220, 782 was not like that. It was still easy, you know. So I was like, all right, well, just leave the same weight on. I'm going to do it again. So I go out there. It's still super hard to stabilize because the bar, again, is still super warped and bent and, whipping and just really, really hard to stabilize. But I just took my time, was super patient and then squatted the weight relatively easy. Like the weight, is not hard. It's just stabilizing that weight, making sure your body is stable with that much weight, can kind of become a safety concern. But we had excellent spotters and loaders for that primetime session, and so I felt safe. But the third one, just kind of took my time, hit the hole, came up, and the weight moved like it it does. It's only 782. So ended with 782 there. I attribute the squat miss on the second mostly one equipment I think played a role, but two, I think more importantly, just being dehydrated and being 78 pounds lighter than I normally am walking around. And I knew at that point, I was already exhausted after squats because that took a lot out of me. Missing a squat takes a lot out of you people. So for bench press, I was like, well, I'm going to salvage what I can here. Let's see what I can do. But I've already lost a lot of weight. Bench usually gets hit the hardest when you lose a lot of mass that fast.
Mhm.
So, warm-ups are feeling not good. Even 418 didn't feel good. So I take my opener. It did not feel good. I take my second. I think it was like 446. I dropped my second from like 460 to like 446. 463 or 468 to 446. And that didn't feel good. And I was like, I was using a grip where my ring finger was on the ring. I just had no power, like nothing was like hurting or anything, but I was, telling myself after my second attempt, like, I can't, like, this isn't working. And what I meant was like, there's no power. Like I can't press like I normally would. Cause my bench training going into the meet was really good. Like I felt, most days I felt strong enough to hit 500 to 510, but at the meet, in a meet setting where there's going to be strict, commands and stuff like that, I wanted to hit 480.
Mhm.
So I was like, that should be reasonable, and I hit it in training really, really good, like no problems. I was like 228 when I did it and it moved great, right? 500 was comfortably there that day. But, and I've hit 500 before, so I know what it feels like. But on the meet, man, like even doing 446 was a struggle. And I was like, I have to go close grip the last one or I'm going to miss this shit. So, because I just don't have any power left in it. So I went close grip and I hit my third attempt. Um, it's just a reliable grip. That was pretty cool.
How much closer did you go?
I went like from my ring finger to like my index finger, like in.
Oh, so you went all the way close grip.
Just about maybe like half an inch out. And I
So
increased my back height like 3 pins or something.
how
And
is
on the
it
TSS
that,
rack, that's like that.
yeah, so how is it that you would be that much stronger at close grip compared to out wide?
I had more power. I can generate more power.
So why
At least
don't you do that all the time?
well, again, you have to think before this meet, when I was my normal body weight and normal training, I was using that wider grip to maximize the amount of weight that I could lift because of the shorter range of motion. And it was working, like it was finally working, and it was working good. But on the day, of course, because I had lost that weight, I didn't know how it would affect me. And I realized, if I try it the normal way, I'm going to miss it on my third. And, I don't want to embarrass myself missing a weight that I've hit like a million times. So I'm going to just go close grip because I know I can do it there.
I see.
But now I'm
So
just carrying grip right now again.
so when you've got the water weight in you and your leverages are good, you're going to be stronger with a wider grip. Whereas if you don't have as much of the leverage to rely on, then closer grip's going to be stronger.
Yeah. And I was, yeah, like if I don't have any leverage, if I have bad leverage or if it's an off day, I there's certain weights I know that close grip I can hit no matter what.
Mhm.
But, for me, it was also just, I was just a state of sheer exhaustion by that point.
Yeah.
So that contributed too. I went 8 for 9 this meet actually. Performance wise, it's not bad, but the meet was not
Like what
super.
times you do squats and what times you get around the bench press?
I wasn't keeping track of time, but I know that it finished around. It was probably about a 4-hour meet, a little bit over 4 hours.
Oh,
Which
that's
for me,
fast.
well, for me, that's actually not too fast. That's like normal. Like I think a fast meet for me is like slightly under 3 hours or about 3 hours.
Mm.
But when I train big SBDs though, like I usually take 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
Oh, I
Most
see.
big,
So you're used to it. Yeah.
yeah. So for me, 4 hours is like slow.
That's funny. My best meet ever was I think it was 11-hour meet. So I had like 4 or 5 hours in between each, like from squat to bench and bench to deadlift. I loved it. I thought it was great. The fast meets always tore me up.
Yeah, that's slow. I mean, for me, I would have to really just stop and just relax after each like lift, and then kind
Yeah.
of, yeah, because that for me that's so long. Like, and it just seems like such an inefficient way of running meets. I mean, who's gonna watch a meet for 11 hours?
Oh, it definitely wasn't. Everyone just came when it was deadlift time. Or
Yeah,
like the family that loved their people. So they stayed all day. They were like, this sucks. The chairs are uncomfortable.
yeah. For viewership reasons, I think that's kind of killer.
Yeah. These were more backyard meets. They were less
They're
super
not ran.
professionally run.
They're not ran well. Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah. So go on to deadlift. Deadlift warm ups feel okay, like not great, but not good, but not terrible either. I felt worse before, so I'm like, I should be fine. So hit my opener 722. It's fine. I jump up to 793. I think that moved okay. It didn't feel actually that good. And then I went up to 804. And 804 actually moved better than 793. And 804 actually felt kind of easy. So I was like, okay, we're good. And then hit that, and then that was enough to win it. At least for 242 that day. 804 is just one of those weights, that I know I can pretty much always hit, that I won't miss it. But it actually moved pretty good on the day. I was kind of surprised at how well it moved. I think I was still good for like 8, not like a PR or,
Mhm.
what I wanted. Originally, I was planning to hit like 848 to 860 because, based off of training and everything, I looked like I was good for it. But I
Mhm.
think my training went pretty well for deadlift the last like 3 or 4 weeks into the meet. Like it started finally to click. So I think even on that really bad off day, I think I was still good for like an 837 or 832 if I needed it. But I didn't need
Mhm.
it. I needed. It was survival mode. And since I didn't total nearly as much as I wanted to, like not even close, um, the silver lining is that I got to rebound a lot faster in the training because it would just be kind of like a heavy like Saturday SBD rather than like a full on full throttle sort of meet. So that
Mhm.
actually kind of worked out in my favor when I went back into training these past few weeks. Um, one other
How'd you
thing that
feel? Right.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead. I was
no,
just
no,
gonna
no.
ask you how you felt after the meet.
I didn't feel too bad, like physically. I was just tired, but I didn't feel like
Yeah.
too beat up or in pain and stuff. Even the next day, I didn't feel like too beat up or anything. I was fine. Um, but one thing I will say, one other very, very, very important factor that people I don't think understand or appreciate a lot of the time is probably for me, probably one of the most important factors because it really affects how I lift. Um, the meet was at like a time where where I lived in like the DMV area, it would have been like the meet would have basically started at 7 p.m. and ended at 11 p.m. on a Sunday. Now,
Very
Sunday,
late.
yeah, I usually talk, sometimes I'll talk to you guys. And then after that, I will usually just do like schoolwork or dissertation or whatever, answer, all just miscellaneous tasks for like
Mhm.
anywhere between like 6 to like 14, 15 hours plus sometimes, and that's all I do Sunday. I never train Sunday. And I don't like to train, so I don't even like lifting on Sunday, you know?
Mhm.
So that was the other reason I was upset about competing on Sunday already, because I don't lift on Sundays and I don't have the time to lift on Sunday. And Sundays I'm usually beat up from lifting Saturday. So, you know, Um, I just don't think there was great carryover effects for that either. And then
Mm.
the other thing too is we were lifting at 7 p.m. to like 11 p.m. And even on weekdays, I don't lift that late. On the weekends, I definitely don't lift that late, you know, because it's just I don't perform optimally and it's not comfortable for me. I just don't like to do it. So usually if I'm lifting that late, I can probably expect like a small percent decrease in performance because it's just not optimal, you know. It's not an optimal time to lift weights for me. Um, and I'm basically lifting that late. And so that probably also, contributed to some of the exhaustion that I was feeling while lifting and discomfort because it's just not something that I do. So and even training like that, even consistently, it's just still not like it just never worked out for me. I just don't like it. But if it's one day of the year and I'm competing, you just kind of have to suck it up and go do it. But if I could, in a perfect world, I would much rather compete at like any time between like 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and have like a 4 hour, 3.5 hour meet and get in and out, get it done, drug tested stuff, all that stuff, and be done by like 5 or 4.
Do they drug test you every meet?
This was like the first meet in years they didn't.
Mm.
Because I didn't do anything like particularly special either, so it probably makes sense.
Yeah.
But if I like put up like this record breaking total, then yeah, of course they would have. Or even if I got close to that, they probably would have. But yeah, I think all those things sort of came together and affected my performance on the day. But it was still enough to come away with the win, and I don't have any regrets. I had a great time in Las Vegas, and I got to do a lot of the things I wanted to do. So I'm not too mad at it. But going forward, I am going to want to, as I have with many other meets. I mean, this was definitely a one-off, but just making sure I'm disciplined for meets and able to perform, to the standard that I'd like to. So, that's what I intend to do. My next meet, I'll do a meet August 28th in Seoul, Korea, South Korea. And then that's going to be kind of like a tune-up meet. It won't be like an all-out exertion sort of meet. And that's halfway across the world. It's a 14-hour flight. And then after that meet, my next meet is either going to be the November Corrupted Classic or it'll be in December, the Virginia Pro. And that meet is where I'm going to really try to push to do the performance I wanted at Nationals and then some. So
What total did you think you'd be able to achieve rolling into nationals? Like what were you
well, if,
predicting before
if
you drink?
circumstances if circumstances were normal and I didn't like drink and I just ate and just took care of myself over the days and didn't do anything too crazy or stressful, which I did do. If I didn't do any of those things, I probably would have hit the numbers I wanted or very close to it. So probably 826, like 474, 480 bench, and then like a 54 deadlift. Probably like 21 vicinity, like 2160 to 2170 total.
Mhm.
But I didn't get anywhere close to that, obviously. So
What's the best total you've ever had?
in a meet,
Yeah.
I've done 20. I've done 2094, and then I've done 2105 twice. But the 2105 meets, you should also know that I didn't take. On the second one, I didn't take a third attempt deadlift, and I
Mhm.
kind of sat back squat. And on the meet before that, um, I took a deadlift jump on my third that was really big, rather than
Mhm.
taking a weight I knew I could have taken. So both meets, they were still like a good 30, 40 pound, left over in the tank
Mhm.
comfortably. And then there was more left over on squat in both meets too comfortably.
Yeah.
So realistically, those meets weren't like full all out meets. They were just, meets to put up over 2100.
Mhm. So you're pretty much like here in the next couple meets, you're primed for a pretty big PR on your total, it sounds like.
December, that's the goal. In August, I just want to hit, a decent total. It doesn't need to be too crazy. I just want something that, looks good, builds confidence, builds momentum. And then December, I really want to hit big total. So we'll see.
Yeah. Would the one in August be like a 2100 or
Probably,
more?
probably close to that. Probably close.
When do you think you're going to be going after 2200?
Originally my plan was to try to go for that in December, but I might try to go for it in March, depending on how December goes. Because strength wise, I know I'm close. I mean, in training,
Yeah.
I've hit on a total on the same day with calibrated plates and a bar into standard. I've hit like 21, I think like 50 or 40 or 60. I have to double
Mhm.
check. I'm not that far off, so
Yeah, that's pretty close. I mean, we're talking just like
a
a
few
few.
pounds, we're
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Man, that's exciting. Are you going to do that at 242?
Yeah, but I probably won't weigh 242. I'll probably be like 230 to 235.
Yeah. Are you going to go back down into the 220s and try and hit 2200?
Probably, I'll probably still be in 242. I thought about going 220, but I know Bob Matthews wants to go up to 242, so I'll probably stay in this weight class.
Because you could, man, you do a little water cut, you could put up something crazy. Like especially
Oh
when
yeah,
you get to where you can consistently do 2200, put that
even
up.
in Vegas, if I did a healthy water cut to 220, and then yeah, that would have been a completely different story. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have performed a lot better, but I mean, yeah.
It's crazy to think about too. Like anyone who's been following the sport for a little while. I mean, just a few years ago, 2100 at 220 and being like roided up to do it was like
I mean,
mind-boggling. And now
that
we
was
got
like
natural guys doing it.
with most weight. I mean, every weight class. Even there's not a lot of like dudes that were hitting 2100, 2200. Like there were a couple, but not like a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. 23 was like the highest for the most part. And then all of a sudden everyone started like clobbering into the 2400s and God, I don't even know what the top is now, but I'm sure it's in the 2500s. I mean, it's crazy
I think it,
stuff.
I think it's 2505 by Dan Bell. I think Dan
Yeah, that
Bell
sounds right.
Dan Bell untested. I love Dan Bell. He's an awesome guy. And Jesus, I also love him. He's an awesome guy. Jesus put up the biggest. No, Ray Williams right now technically has the biggest in a meet untested total. I think it's like 24-12. Jesus did like I think a couple pounds under that, and like did it pretty easily too. So I think in the next year he'll probably break 2500. I think those are the three guys that have done over 24.
Mm. I think there might be a couple more actually. I'm trying to remember. I think Eric Lillybridge went over 24.
Raw with sleeps, I don't think he did.
Oh, you're talking about with sleeves? Oh, I'm thinking wraps.
Oh no, I'm talking just sleep.
Yeah,
Yeah, these dudes
yeah.
did it in sleeves. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. It's crazy. I'm very curious to see how like over the next couple decades what's going to end up happening because man, there's just no telling. There's no
Yeah,
telling.
I think we'll see maybe a couple more 2400 totals. I think we'll see a couple more 1,000 kilo totals that are sub super heavyweight. Um, but I mean, dudes naturally, even talking about 1,000 kilos, I mean, there are years where 1,000 kilos, can win super heavyweight titles.
Yeah.
So like, it's kind of crazy to think about now that there's guys that are doing it at like that are capable of doing it at like the 242, 220 range. They're out there. There's a couple.
What do
of
you
them.
think? Like the top total of just peak human potential can be like do you have a number in mind of you're like all right, no one's ever going to beat this number but
No, I
people will
don't.
get it.
I don't have a number in mind. I don't know.
I assume I would probably guess 2700 2800 and just get just the right phenom coming through. I mean, to be honest, I think if you got on drugs, dude, I don't know what you would hit, but it would be a lot. It would definitely be over 2500.
I think I would get another 24 range for sure, and then 25 would be really pushing it, and then injury risk would probably be really high.
Oh yeah, yeah. You would definitely have to like collect your injuries of tendons off the bone to get
Yeah,
there.
and I'd have to be willing to go above 242.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You would definitely be. Well, honestly, you would probably be moving into 308 range, super heavyweight,
Yeah,
if you
which
were
I would.
gonna if you're gonna go at it like that.
Yeah, I'm never doing that. Oh my
Or you'd be
god.
getting out of breath tying his shoes.
I don't, dude. That would like that'd probably take like 30 years off my lifespan. I
Oh
don't.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
That would,
it's like it's impressive what guys can do when they're on drugs, but the risk associated with it and the price you have to pay, there's no free lunch.
yeah.
It's steep.
Yeah,
It's steep.
you pay to play. You
Yeah,
pay to,
yeah, you do. And
yeah.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why, like when you say like you're not on drugs, like I believe you because I know you're well aware of what the risks are, and I know that that just doesn't fit into your risk and reward ratio.
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't, man. Like people, if it fits into it, and you are all about being gung ho, being the best competitor ever, blah blah blah, and like you don't care about like having a life or a family or anything afterwards. Like, great, knock yourself out. But me, it's not for me, man. Not for me.
Yeah. My biggest thing too is always think about how I don't care how convinced you are right now that you want it and that you're willing to put everything on the line for it, but the odds that you still think that in 10 years
When the day
is
comes, yeah,
low, and you're probably going to be, and you can't take it back. You cannot take it
yeah,
back. So you're probably going to be like, man, you know what? Because like when I was like 19, 20, I was convinced I was going to get on them, and I knew I had to peak naturally first. That's like I had to do that, and I was like, man, I'm going to get on them, and I'm going to do crazy stuff. And now looking at that, I'm like, that is dumb. I would never do that. Like, I'm so glad I didn't. To where I'm like, I just count my blessings that I never took a steroid because I know I would have walked myself into a hole. I would have got addicted to them. I probably wouldn't have taken them the right way. Like, oh man, it just like just like
there's
whole a
just so
barrel of worms.
yeah, there's just so many things that can go wrong. Like, and I totally get it. It's like, and again, like even like cognitively and everything else, like we're not fully like developed as like these teenagers, and teenagers are like trying to get into like taking this stuff and they just want instant gratification. Or sometimes, they're like, or they're even more sensible like you, and they're like, oh, I want to peak naturally first and then do it. But then I'm going to do all this crazy stuff. And it's just like, like just tone it down. I
Oh
know,
yeah.
when I was a teenager, same thing, like I was, I mean, I never wanted to get on anything, even when I peaked naturally, but I just wanted to do just insane shit all the time. And I was like, once I got to like, like 19, 20, then I started to think a little more about what I was doing. And then, once I got
Yeah.
to 21, 22, 23, then I really started to think about things. And then, there was a big shift in my training and how I do things. But yeah, man, definitely a lot of risk there. And that's a great point that you brought up about, I think people 10 years, 15 years down the line, like, are they still going to feel the same about it? I think there's a rare select few that might not, that might, like Ronnie Coleman maybe, but I think most of us probably wouldn't when the Grim Reaper's knocking on our door, or, we're, sterile, or we can't have children, or like we have these health problems, like, like you said, you can't take it back. So just not something I'm willing to, risk.
Yeah. And that just it reminded me of a story I have on that. I know a guy, he lives like one town over from me,
Mm-hmm.
that which like some people don't realize this, but when you take a lot of drugs, your muscles grow faster than the tendons do. So your
Yeah,
risk
they
of
can't.
tearing a tendon goes sky high. So this
Yep.
dude was doing the overhead tricep extension with I don't know, like 120s, 130s, something crazy. And when he came down, both triceps went pop pop right off the bone, right off the bone. And and I mean like, which I don't know what that looked like right after it popped, but he had a cast from his shoulder all the way down to his wrist for like I don't know months, and he couldn't do anything. Like he couldn't even wipe his own ass, and his wife divorced him during that time, and then he was alone. So like I don't even know how he took care of his essentials. I mean, the dude couldn't even like eat or drink anything without help, and to me, when I think about drugs, I just think about the injuries that are going to come after it, especially if you don't peak naturally before you get to it. Because, if you ride your whole like range of strength gains, especially beginner gains, you ride all that stuff on drugs, like your muscle to tendon strength ratio is going to be so far off that
Yeah.
like you're going to blow stuff up. And that's what happens to all of
That's
the
what happens to
guys that
untested
start
lifters all
taking,
the time.
yeah. And like people people don't realize that, like, look, if you're gonna do it, I don't care if you do it. I don't judge you if you do it. I just know I would never do it. It's like, look, you better peak naturally and you've ever been lifting for a long time, or else, buddy, you don't even know what you're in for. And people will like, look, if you tear tendons off the bone, you can go into surgery and get that stuff fixed, but it is not the same as what it was before. They're going to drill a hole in your bone. They're going to shove the tendon in there and put a screw in it and like hope for the best. Right. But like, you're going to have pain down the road. Stuff's not going to work the same. You're going to have weird looking muscles. And it's like, you don't know what you're asking for when you say you want to get on drugs and be super strong. And I just wish people would get that before they go and do it. And like, you know, I get people sometimes with me, like, especially if you look at some of my older photos, they'll be like, drugs all day. And I'm like, no, look, if there's anyone that like, as soon as you mention drugs, you're about to get a lecture from about it, is me. Anytime someone tells me they're on drugs in my gym or something, I mean, I'll sit them down and be like, we're about to talk about this, whether you like it or not. It's like, I'm giving you a lecture.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Cause I think a lot of younger people are just so misinformed about it, and they just make that decision so, rashly, and just don't think it through,
Yeah. I think they underestimate what they can achieve naturally. If you truly learn how to train well and eat well and you dial everything in, you will make so much progress that you will be shocked at what you could look like in 5 years. But if you train like an idiot, you eat like an idiot, after 2 years, you might be like, I can't do anything naturally. It's like, well, it's
My
because you don't
genetics are
train
bad.
well. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you don't even know. You don't even know what you're capable of. And I think most people could add so much more muscle mass than what they even realize if they could just do it properly for a little while. But instead, they're like, oh, this natural gig doesn't work for me. I'm gonna go get on drugs. And then even half the time, then they're still not satisfied with what happens because they still don't know how to train, still don't know how to eat. So now they end up taking crazy amounts. It's just like, the slippery
It's
slope down the hill.
just a big downward spiral.
Yeah. Anyways, I got my soapbox about that for a little bit. Maybe it was helpful to somebody. I probably shouldn't have gone on as long as I did, but
No, I
I
mean,
feel strongly about it.
no, man, I think it's an important topic. I think it's something that really should be brought to light and to attention to a lot of people. A lot of people who aren't even in powerlifting, but people who just get on that shit, super early
Yeah.
because they want to be bigger, stronger. Like, just calm down. It's not the end of the world. Train hard, train smart, be methodical. Give it years before you even think about touching that stuff.
Yeah. I heard a kid the other day, he's in high school. He was in the gym talking to one of his buddies and I overheard him. He was talking about how like nutrition doesn't work on him like it works on normal people because he's different. And that the only way he'll be able to get lean is through trend. I was like, I almost said something. I almost went over there and
Wow.
was like, bro,
You have
what is
broken
going on
before.
over here? Don't let me
Yeah.
hear stuff like that.
That's just such an unintelligent take. But I mean, the high school kid and their mind is wherever. I don't know.
Yeah, and they know where to get it from too over there. So it's kind of like, all right, like I don't even know if he's serious or not. He's probably serious, and he'll probably consider it. He's definitely has the personality of the kind of person who would actually do it. So I'm just like, please don't do that. Crazy stuff. And if they are going to do it, you need to like have your primary physician on board with routine blood work, and they sit there and do it with you. Like, otherwise, like if you're gonna do it and not look at your blood work, like, oh Jesus Christ.
That's
Man.
so risky. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. So today was fun. I bobbled a little bit a couple times, but you're always perfect as always. So it was a lot of fun.
No, it was a great conversation.
And then yeah, next time I want to get really into your have you studied hypnosis at all in your psychological?
Minimally.
So I've been reading about it just because I'm curious. And I've sort of developed this hypothesis that the best form of a lifting ritual actually is a form of self-hypnosis that you do before you actually lift. And that's like the secret, because it certainly feels like hypnosis whenever I like because I was in a trance before I pulled 735 and some of my other big lifts, and my ritual felt like it got me into it. So I'm curious to hear your take on that, and we kind of like pick apart your rituals for each lift and how you feel psychologically, and then also getting into some of the meat and potatoes of the technique. that you employ and like some of the mental cues you think about, and then how you visualize different things while you're doing the movement, so on and so forth. I just want to dig into those things.